I call this regular council meeting to order July 2nd, 2024. I'll just confirm, Mayor Clark, that you're online and you can hear us, we can see you. Can you just confirm you can hear us, we can hear you?
I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, good.
First, I'd like to commence the meeting with the City of Medicine Hat's land acknowledgement. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. We'll now take a few moments for reflection and/or prayer. All right, thank you, everybody. So moving on to the adoption of previous council minutes, were there any amendments to make or clarifications on the June 17th, 2024 meeting minutes? Seeing none, we can adopt the council minutes. And adoption of the agenda. Does anyone have anything they want to add or remove from the agenda?
Sorry, thank you. Through the chair, if we could, I guess, amend the agenda to remove item 12.1 as we did not have a chance to discuss it in closed.
All right.
Thank you.
I think if that's the motion, we might need a seconder to that motion to amend the agenda.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Hyder. Any discussion of the amendment? If not, let's proceed to vote on the amendment. Mayor Clark, if you could just tell me if you're in favor or opposed.
I will agree to the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that passes unanimously. Moving on to council announcements, if there's any announcements this month or this week? Yes, Councillor Hyder, go ahead.
Sorry, through the chair. Just a little bit of a, I had the opportunity to go and welcome people to our community about Food Bank Alberta Conference. So it was a wonderful turnout, greatly planned. Hats off to our root cellar. They do a fantastic job down there and showing lots of things, how they do to other wonderful communities in the province. And it was just a really great thing for Melissa and her team to do. And I was grateful to be part of it.
Thank you, Councillor Hyder. I should also offer congratulations to all of the wonderful events that took place and fought through the weather this weekend. Canada Day celebrations, Beat the Heat Festival, Stampede, the Town Square activation on Saturday. So it was a great weekend. I'm sure if I'm forgetting someone, I apologize. There was just so much going on. And end of Pride Month, and they had a celebration for that as well. So a great weekend to be in this city for sure. So congratulations to all the organizers and volunteers. That was a tremendous amount of work and really well done. All right, seeing no other announcements, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull from the consent agenda for discussion?
I do. Councillor Robbins, I would like to pull 8.7, the Canyon Creek Heron Crossing Multi-Use Trail, please.
Does anyone have anything else they'd like to pull? I don't think we need a seconder to pull things out of the consent agenda because we're not voting on it yet, but I'm looking. It'll be all right. Any other things to pull from the consent agenda? So the next question is, where would we like to deal with that under committee
I would be okay waiting till after all the public hearings, just so everybody can do their thing and get out, but
Yeah.
I can move that anywhere, it's fine.
For sure, okay, well, we don't want to lose track of it, so let's put it maybe under committee business and make it 11.6. Thank you for that. So other than that one item, which after discussion will need its own motion, would anyone like to move the adoption of the consent agenda with that one matter?
I'll move the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hirsch.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sharps, any discussion? All right, let's vote. Mayor Clark, if you could just tell us what your vote is?
My vote is yes.
Thank you very much. And it's not showing up on the screen, but I can see the vote, and it was unanimous. All right, moving on to our public hearing. First, the first item, 9.1 on the agenda, is bylaw number 4820 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 1720 Bell Street to medium-density residential district. And City Manager Mitchell, would you like to provide a introduction?
Yes, I would. This is land use bylaw to rezone Bell Street to the business industrial district, and I will turn it over to Mr. Champagne to give us the presentation. Thank you.
All right, I'm hoping he can clarify that because I just read something different than that, so that'll be great to get clarified. I'm going to call the public hearing to order for bylaw 4820 at 6:36, and we will begin with the introduction by administration.
All right,
Mr.
thank
Champagne,
you.
go ahead, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So yeah, slight correction. There was an error in the agenda package. This rezoning is to medium-density residential. So good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Champagne. I'm a senior planner in Planning and Development Services, and I will be presenting bylaw number 4820, a land use bylaw amendment to rezone 1720 Bell Street Southwest from community services to medium-density residential district. So I want to begin with a brief overview of my presentation of the information I'll be covering tonight. I'll first start with providing a little bit of site context, and then I'll go through some of the amendment details. Next, I'll touch on how this proposal aligns with our land use policy documents, including our municipal development plan. And then I'll share some photos of the site, and lastly, provide our recommendation to City Council. So the subject site is South Country Village near the southwestern outskirts of the city. On the map here, it highlights its location, being the portion in blue that is outlined in green. To situate ourselves, this is in between Tower Estates, which is located to the north, and the airport to the south, and this is along Gershaw Drive. The surrounding area is primarily residential, which is depicted as yellow and orange on this map, as well as highway commercial, which is depicted in red. The surrounding area is largely undeveloped. So this land use bylaw amendment is for rezoning the subject site from community services to medium-density residential. The intent of this rezoning is to accommodate future medium-density residential uses on the site, which is not allowed in the community services district. An amendment that was made in September of 2022 through bylaw number 4707 saw the removal of residential uses from the community services district, rendering the existing use on the site legal non-conforming. The land is currently used as a supportive living facility for seniors, and the operator is hoping to continue that use and further expand their operations. Preliminary plans to accommodate future development on the site were submitted with the rezoning application. This was circulated through our Technical Coordinating Committee, so our TCC committee, for review and comments on the proposed development. And so far, there have been no technical concerns raised that suggest a rezoning or further development on this site to medium-density residential is problematic. Rezoning this site to medium-density residential use is supported by our City Council's strategic plan, specifically number 1.9, which states that we should be actively pursuing opportunities to remove obstacles to success, innovation, and incremental development while ensuring regulatory compliance. So it accomplishes this removal of obstacles by allowing a residential use to be expanded on the site. And 6.8 states that city administration should maximize infill and brownfield redevelopment opportunities in the city. And I haven't shared it on this slide, but also 6.1 is ensuring our city has healthy finances and long-term financial sustainability while maintaining organizational health and resilience. So this rezoning facilitates the redevelopment and intensification of the site, which increases the city's tax base without the installation of new municipal infrastructure and services that further add onto our infrastructure liabilities. So on the topic of fiscal finances, as there's already a proposed development being considered on the site, on this slide here, I wanted to share a quick outline of the potential financial impact of the proposed development of an apartment addition would have on this particular site. So this provides some information on possible tax revenue that may be generated by the proposed development of this site. So using data shared from our tax assessment department, this table shows the projected increase in value in municipal taxes for the site if it would be further developed. So currently this property is assessed at approximately $31 million. If the proposed apartment addition of 126 units is constructed, this could potentially increase the overall assessed value of the site to $47.5 million. Accordingly, the new development could bring in an additional approximately $115,000 of municipal taxes in 2025. I want to be explicit that these are all estimates, and there are very many variables that come into play when a development is being proposed. So numbers could come in higher, it could come in lower. This is just some further information, provides us an opportunity to use this information in our analysis and review of the proposed rezoning. So next, I will turn to the municipal development plan. So the image we see here is the city sector map from our MDP, which shows the 6 sectors in our city. So the site is located within the west residential sector of the municipal development plan, but is on the cusp of the west employment sector. Here is a more detailed view of this map from the municipal development plan of the west residential sector. This sector is largely undeveloped, but it contains almost exclusively lands reserved for future residential uses. So this proposed development aligns quite well with the vision of this entire area in the future. Accordingly, the proposed rezoning aligns with the How We Grow and Where We Grow sections of the MDP. It's consistent with the sections identified in the slide. The rezoning allows the operator the ability to further develop the site and supporting healthcare and lifestyle amenities already available on site. So I won't go into great detail of all of these elements, but more context is provided within the briefing note provided within or attached to the council agenda package. So concerning the land use bylaw, the site is currently designated as community services, but this district doesn't support any further residential uses. Medium density residential is the appropriate zoning for the site, as it is compatible with the surrounding area and can accommodate the proposed development. Next, I will share some ground photos as well as some aerial photos of the site in question. So this here is a view looking north from the site's entrance. Here we're looking west from the corner of de Havilland Boulevard Southwest and Oxford Avenue Southwest. This image here looks east from the corner of Bannon Avenue and Bell Street Southwest. The following aerial photos provide a much better view of the subject site, which I've highlighted here in yellow. We see Tower Estates at the bottom of this photograph, and the airport is on the other side of Gershaw Drive. Just a few different angles, just so we can situate ourselves. So it is recommended through the Municipal Planning Commission that City Council approve Bylaw 4820 to rezone 1720 Bell Street Southwest to medium-density residential. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Champagne. I'm going to see if anyone from council has any questions about the presentation that's just been provided, and then we'll move on to the rest of the public hearing. Councillor Hirsch, I see your name on the list.
Thanks. Through the chair to Senior Planner Champagne, thanks for the presentation. Just a quick question with regards to the Technical Coordinating Committee, and I do understand, but maybe you can explain just to the general public what what they're charged with. And I know it's, you know, they take even consideration of garbage collection, et cetera. But I'm also interested to get the feedback from them relative to busing, and is there our transit system? So is there capacity to meet the expectations of the density? And it might be the fact that the bus isn't really that busy or not filled. I just want to know if that means that there's any implications for additional soft services to be considered. And I do have another question.
Wonderful, thank you. So through the chair, so just for a brief overview of our TCC, the Technical Coordinating Committee, this is a committee within the city with representation from multiple city departments. So this is environmental utilities, municipal works, planning and development services, and they, when a major project is being put through, an opportunity is given to circulate the proposal through that committee so that they could provide comments. And one of the members of the Technical Coordinating Committee is the Transit Department, and they have provided comments there. And I know there have been discussions not only with regards to the capacity of the transit system to accommodate that, but even potentially rerouting things to better serve this proposed development. But that's ultimately something that would come at the development stage.
No, appreciate that. And a lot of times, and I get it, sometimes we talk about planning changes in terms of the area that's under review, but yet we kind of have to kind of think about what the potential would be if any development, medium density, which means density, what's the impact to that sort of service? So I appreciate that that would be at the development stage. So my second question, the area that you described, is that development or any future development there under medium density, are they going to have to be compliant to the airport master plan when it comes to the height restrictions?
Through the chair, yes, absolutely. So the airport is another member of the Technical Coordinating Committee, and they have also provided comments with regards to the maximum building height on this site, because there are implications given the proximity to the airport.
So that being said, any developer would be well-known in terms of what would that be looking like at any development permit stage, right? So, okay.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
Thank you very much.
Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. I think just for the public's sake, we've heard this through the Municipal Planning Commission, but there is a medium density unit on that site now. So how will this zoning change affect them, or did they have to become, or is this particular piece of land already zoned medium density, although it's in the picture of what's asking to be changed? So if you could just explain that, please.
Of course. So through the chair, the site is zoned community services, although there is a development on the site, which is more in alignment with a medium density residential form. So that is what we describe as legal non-conforming. What that simply means is at the time that that development was approved, it complied with the land use bylaw. An amendment was made to the land use bylaw which removed that use from that particular district, rendering this legal non-conforming. So it means the existing use is allowed to continue existing, but if they want to expand their operations, they need to be in alignment with the land use bylaw. And that's what this process is doing.
I don't see any other speakers on the list, so thank you so much for clarifying that. Stick around, we may have more questions in a moment. So at this time, I'm going to ask Madam Clerk to read the notification report.
Thank you, Chair. Bylaw 4820 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 1720 Bell Street Southwest to medium density residential. Bylaw 4820 received first reading on June 3, 2004. Public notice of the subject bylaw was published in the Medicine Hat News on Saturday, June 15, 2024, and Saturday, June 22, 2024. A notification letter related to proposed bylaw 4820 was mailed to 119 adjacent, abutting, or vicinity property owners on June 4 of 2024. One written submission from Beverly Schaefer was received and is included herein. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I'm not sure if we should read that into the record, her response. I could do it. It's fairly short, and I think it should be. I don't know if she's here to speak today, but as she took the time to write it, and of course, I actually have a question coming out of it. So she advises to whom it concerns in council. As a resident and owner in Tower Estates, I hereby object to the proposed bylaw 4820. Please be advised there are safety issues I'm not sure the planners are aware of. Traffic will be a major concern on Highway number 3. There's currently enough traffic to warrant traffic lights along the airport. Be wise, don't improvise. Beverly Schaefer, I'll leave her address out of my recitation of her letter. So I wonder if you could address that question or concern that she has about how planning considered the traffic in the area.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So through the chair, we did receive that concern from the resident, and it's a very valid concern. And again, just to go back to the topic of our technical coordinating committee, one of the members of our technical coordinating committee is the Municipal Works Department. So this is our roads department responsible for our roads and traffic safety and traffic lights. So they are part of both the rezoning process, but as well, and much more importantly, through the development approval process. So they're the ones who provide their recommendations with regards to any changes that are made to the site with regards to the proposed development. I can't comment on their behalf on what specific changes may or may not be made in the area to accommodate this, but the resident can rest assured that we've taken into account her concerns, and those will be shared with our Municipal Works Department.
Right, thank you very much. All right, it's our public participation time. Is anyone in the gallery who wishes to speak, please come down to the podium. Please state your name for the record and indicate whether you are speaking for or against the bylaw.
Good evening. Madam Chair, honorable members of council, administration, guests, I'm Alvin Fritz, architect for the project, and I'm speaking for the bylaw amendment as stated. I have a little bit of a video with, if I'm allowed to present it, it can run concurrent with my speaking, should keep me well in time. Gratitude to administration here in Lethbridge. I work from Ontario to British Columbia, and it's been very refreshing working with Medicine Hat. We've been working on this design for a while, and it's a bit of a preview for the development permit that's pending. If a photograph is worth 1,000 words, then an animation must be worth 1,000,000, I figure. But this is how the building will fill the site. You did see some pictures earlier looking right up that driveway, which should give you a bit of an indication. It's a main floor of admin and amenity space with 3 levels of residential above. It is replacement facility, so it's actually not increasing the bed count on the site with this facility. It is just providing new premises and a new home. One of the buildings, Sunnyside, one of the older ones, will be removed in the context of this development. South Country Village is one of the largest employers of the city of Medicine Hat and has over 200 employees. It is also the grandfather, if you will, of age in place. It's sort of a concept of seeing people age continually within their environment. It's useful to be able to stay where you are. Change is difficult at this time of life. And so this is the facility that we would like to see at this location and will be making the development permit for. The height has been considered and vetted against the airport requirements. The project is continuing care facility. It's of non-combustible construction. In the building permit, there's something known as B2. So as long as you can get up and egress a building under your own mental capacity and physical strength, you can live in a group C. This one here is B2 because we can accommodate people who would not have that mental faculty or physical strength. And so we're looking forward to being able to accommodate them. 126 units, main floor is 41,300 square feet. A small, modest expansion is considered pending still. We have a small streams grant out there which will accommodate special needs residents under complex care. And so that will really add to, and thank you very much for playing that twice. So that's my 5 minutes. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fritz, for coming to present. I didn't ask you for the spelling of your name. Sorry, if you wouldn't mind just giving that to us.
Alvin, last name Fritz, Fritz.
That's what I thought I heard, but thank you so much. All right, is there anyone else in the gallery who wishes to speak? Please come down to the podium. If you can state your name for the record and indicate you are speaking for or against the bylaw. And I'll ask for the third and last time. Is there anyone in the gallery who wishes to speak? Please come to the podium and state your name for the record and indicate whether you are speaking before or against the bylaw. All right, I see no other speakers, and so I will close the public hearing at 6:56. Do any of my fellow councillors have a motion or
Yes.
or
Thank you.
amendment to a motion they want to make?
Yes, I move that council give second reading to bylaw 4820.
Second.
All right, seeing no one to discuss, let's vote. Mayor Clark, could you tell us how you vote, please?
Yes.
Thank you. And
So I move the council gives third and final reading to bylaw 4820 to amend the land use bylaw.
Second.
go ahead, Mayor Clark.
No, we have to have discussion first. I was jumping the gun there. I apologize.
Okay, that's quite all right. I don't see anyone else wishing to speak in this moment, but I'm looking at them. No. So we can proceed to vote as there's no further commentary here. So go ahead, Mayor Clark, you can tell us your vote.
I vote yes.
Thank you very much. And so did the rest of the council. And so that passes unanimously. And thank you again for the two presentations we received on this topic today. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is 9.2, Bylaw 4824, to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 620 Porcelain Avenue Southeast to Business Industrial District. City Manager Mitchell, did you wish to give an introduction to this one?
Thank you. I will turn it over to Mr. Brad Irwin, planner. Go ahead, Brad.
Mr. Irwin, before you begin, I will then call the public hearing tomorrow, to order at 6:58 p.m. And then we can hear your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, all. I'm Brad Irwin, a senior planner with Planning and Development Services, and I'll be presenting on the rezoning of 620 Porcelain Ave to Business Industrial District. So first, presentation overview. We'll start with some site context and then jump into some land use bylaw amendment details. Then next, we'll go through some land and policy, or legal and policy context, and then run through some site photos, and then lastly, the recommendation to council. So starting off with some site context, the site is located in the River Flats neighborhood at the far southeast end of the neighborhood. The map you see highlights its location. The surrounding area is primarily undeveloped land and open space, with the subject site previously used as a storage building for industrial purposes, part of IXL Industrials. The surrounding, a flood in June of 2010 forced IXL to close its plant, and the land and buildings related to the brick and tile production facility was subdivided, which is shown in blue on the map. and then donated to the Friends of Medalta Society in 2011, which was designated a provincial historic resource in 2012. The subject site is currently its own parcel separated from the brick and tile site shown with the orange highlight. The whole parcel is currently split zoned mixed use, which is the dark brown area, and future urban development, which is the light brown area, which means there are two different zonings across a single parcel. There is known environmental contamination from the previous uses on this land that will require remediation when new development occurs. So I'll go through some land use bylaw amendment details. So the proposed land use bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of 620 Porcelain Avenue from mixed use district to business industrial district. The entire parcel is approximately 74 hectares, and the proposal is to rezone just 3 hectares of the area which is currently zoned mixed use, which will result in another split zoning scenario. And the intent of the rezoning is to accommodate future light industrial or commercial uses in the existing building that is on the subject site. So rezoning the site to business industrial district to accommodate light industrial or commercial uses is supported by Council's strategic plan, specifically point 1.9, which states to actively pursue opportunities to remove obstacles to success, innovation, and incremental development while ensuring regulatory compliance. Rezoning the site to business industrial removes these obstacles by allowing incremental development of light industrial uses and commercial uses in an area previously used for industrial purposes. The subject site currently has a value per hectare of approximately $15,000, which the vast size of the 74-hectare parcel and lack of development on the site, the value per hectare is relatively low. Any development on site, including new business occupying vacant buildings, will increase this value. There is no significant increase in the financial value short term, but with this proposal, it attracts new activity to the area and is a small incremental step towards potential future redevelopment of a brownfield site, which would bring significant economic value in the long term. So next, I'll go through some policy context, starting with the municipal development plan. So the site is located within the far east of the city center sector of the municipal development plan. The location is marked with the pin on the map there on the right side. This sector spans from Highway 1 all the way to the eastern city boundary. Because of the location and the existing use of this site, it falls under the special use typology of the urban transect model, which is a specific type of land use that does not readily fit into a broad use category and is considered on a case-by-case basis. So this image is just a more detailed picture of the city center sector and the large area that it covers. It outlines the typologies within the sector and shows the special use site on the eastern edge of this sector. So on screen, you see a lot of the policy sections of the MDP that were used during the review of this proposal. In the how we grow and where we grow sections, there are multiple areas that are supported by this proposal. So this proposal aligns with the municipal development plan, specifically these sections. The key aspects of this proposal in relation to the MDP is how it draws activity back to an area that is vacant and underutilized at this moment and provides opportunity for redevelopment of a brownfield site, which has many economic, social, and environmental benefits for the community. And for more details on this policy section, you can refer to the briefing note, and it outlines it quite extensively. Next, I'll go through the River Flats Area Redevelopment Plan. So the proposal aligns with the River Flats Area Redevelopment Plan, and specifically sections within the neighborhood urban structure and community preservation, redevelopment, and design parts of the plan. The most significant component within the ARP in relation to this proposal is a policy under section 3.2.9 mixed use area, which states a land use and urban design planning exercise should be done with landowners in this area to establish a long-term vision. The planning exercise should include the vision and policy directions within the River Flats Area Redevelopment Plan and include the public service and tourism area. It is intended to address, but not limit to, specific land uses and their integration within each to support a neighborhood vision. And then number 2, Until such a time that the current land uses are studied and amended, the existing light and heavy industrial land uses and redevelopment of them are considered grandfathered and therefore supported. So with no land use and urban design planning exercise done to this date, the proposal aligns with the ARP and industrial uses are supported. So the land is currently designated as a mixed-use district, does not support any form of industrial use. Business industrial district can be seen as an appropriate zoning due to the current uses of the surrounding area. The area has not seen a transition from the previous industrial uses, and until a plan is in place and a vision for the larger area, commercial and light industrial uses are compatible and fit with the surrounding area and align with the ARP. The proposed district complies with the land use bylaw. So next, I'll go through a few photos of the site. This was using our drone. This is just a small area of the entire site. So what you see highlighted there is just what the subject site for the proposed rezoning will encompass. But the overall entire parcel is actually the whole area that you see, as well as on the far right side, up past the slopes there. So here's another angle. This is looking east, so the upper bench of this site is on top of the cliffs there and expands all the way to the city boundary. Here's another image looking south. And this is looking west. And on the left there, you see the IXL, the provincial historic resource there, the brick and tile making plant. So based on alignment with the MDP and ARP in compliance with the land use bylaw, it is recommended through the Municipal Planning Commission, the City Council approve bylaw number 4824 to rezone a portion of 620 Porcelain Ave Southeast to Business Industrial District. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions that have arisen in anyone's minds as a result of the presentation? Councillor Hirsch?
Thanks. Through the chair, Senior Planner Irwin, thank you for the presentation. Just a question with regards to business, industrial, and permitted uses. So it's been a while, so can you describe for me what would be deemed a permitted use to go into business industrial?
Through the chair to Councillor Hirsch, yes. So there's a variety of uses that are accommodated throughout this district. So they range from motor vehicle and RV sales to restaurants to entertainment facilities, recreational facilities, light industrial uses, greenhouses, parking facilities. It's quite extensive. The only thing that you don't see is residential.
Okay, thanks for that. And then is there any height restrictions on the subject land?
Through the chair to Councillor Hirsch, for this land, I don't believe there will be, based on how far away it is from the airport.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hirsch, for the questions. Any other questions? All right, thank you again for the sorry, Councillor Dumanowski.
Sorry, through the chair. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate all the background. It's well presented. My question is regarding, I was looking for a better image, but I think there's a bridge that crosses the creek there that was replaced at some point through grant funding. I guess my question is around access to that site, roadway development or maintenance, the bridge development and maintenance. Are there weight restrictions, et cetera? What obligations, if any, would any industrial site on this land have toward the maintenance and or costing for future replacement and maintenance of that roadway system, if any?
Through the chair to Councillor Dumanowski, I don't have an exact response for that question. Regarding access, there is access from 620 Porcelain Avenue, and if I recall, when that area flooded, there was a alternative access that looped into this site that is still actually an access easement or right away. When it comes to responsibility and maintenance of the bridge, I guess that will have to be something that's determined when new development would occur, probably flagged through our TCC, through our municipal works department, but it's definitely an item that I could look into if necessary.
Seeing no other questions, thank you, but stick around, there may be another question in a moment. Madam Clerk, I'm wondering if you could read the notification report.
Thank you. Bylaw 4824 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone 620 Porcelain Avenue Southeast to Business Industrial District. Bylaw 4824 received first reading on June 3, 2024. Public notice of the subject bylaw was published in the Medicine Hat News on Saturday, June 15, 2024, and Saturday, June 22, 2024. A notification letter related to proposed bylaw 4824 was mailed to 4 adjacent, abutting, or vicinity property owners on June 4, 2024. One written submission from Meredith Petrie was received and is included herein. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if Ms. Petrie is here. Is she? Come on down, come on down. She indicated that she wished to speak to council, so I thought she might be here. And we have the spelling of your name, so thank you very much for providing something in advance. It is really helpful, so please.
Absolutely.
So I'm just going to ask, well, if anyone else in the gathering, I'll just hold on for just a half second, wishes to speak, please come down, state your name for the record, and indicate whether you're speaking for or against the bylaw. So Ms. Petrie, if you wouldn't mind saying you're speaking for or against it, and then please, we'd like to hear from you.
Hello. My name is Meredith Petrie. If you need the spelling, I can certainly provide it. I actually only want a moment of your time. I'm neither for nor against, and when I submitted my original letter, it was actually before I had the chance to speak with Mr. Irwin, so I appreciate the opportunity to just pass along and have a moment of your time. So let me just say, I want to ask a question. What can you do here that you can't do anywhere else? That's a question that they actually ask of artists when they apply to the International Artist in Residence program at Byla, and I think it's also a really appropriate one for when you're thinking about redevelopment, because redevelopment will in most cases change the answer to that question for better or for worse. So I'm neither for nor against the rezoning of this small parcel, as I'm certain the city and the developer have already given due consideration to those who might potentially be affected around the site, such as the Medicine Hat Artist Lodge, which is right off Porcelain Ave, where people do live there all year round, and that is introduction to our city for many artists coming from as far away as Europe. So appreciate that the city and the developer have given due consideration. And my desire tonight was just to simply address council and to humbly ask the council and the developer that when considering future development of this larger parcel, to really weigh the pros and cons against what the larger section of this land offers, like the irreplaceable views, many of which are featured as one of Medicine Hat's top 17 on our tourism website. And just simply ask, what can you do, what can you see, what can you experience here that you can't anywhere else before you decide how you want to go forward with any future developments. So thank you, and I know it might have not been the normal statements because I'm neither for nor against, but I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful words, Worrell. It's always great to hear from people, and I appreciate your support of the arts as something to highlight in council chambers, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm just going to see Councillor Hart, if you don't mind. If anyone else in the gallery wishes to speak, please come down to the podium, state your name for the record, and indicate whether you're speaking before or against the bylaw. And I'll just ask one more time, and then Councillor Hyder's going to get her chance. Is there anyone in the gallery who wishes to speak? Please come down to the podium, state your name, indicate whether you're for or against the bylaw. Having no other public speakers, Councillor Hyder, please, like to hear from you.
Thank you. And through the chair, I just, now that Meredith brought that up, it was a question of mine. Thank you for taking the time to come, Meredith, and say your words. Mr. Irwin, if you could point out to us, possibly on one of these photos, the artist in residence building, whereabouts is that? I'm trying to get my bearings with the picture here, and
Through the chair, so you're referring to Medalta?
yeah, like where the artists in residence come, and as Meredith pointed out, there is a lot of them that come as far away as Europe, and they do stay with us, and it is their first place to live.
So through the chair, I'm not familiar with the exact buildings, but the entire, I guess you can't see the laser pointer on here. The entire
It's okay.
Medalta facility, I guess
Go ahead.
IXL is
Yeah,
up
Mr.
here.
Sean
I think if you went to the
Champagne.
last photo, there's a pretty good view of it.
Yeah,
The last photo in the presentation. There we are.
straight up, Andy?
Yeah, so it's just the building. You can see the red up there of the Medalta site. And from my recollection, that's where it would be, right in that
Okay.
area. So it'd be across the creek and about, I don't know the distance.
It's just something to consider as our, as Meredith did point out, and there's people that come from Japan and things like that, that it is their first place to live. So if, I'm just curious if it's in amongst the land that we're speaking of.
Through the chair, if it's the building that was, that Councillor McGrogan was mentioning there, it's a parcel over and then some, so it's not within this exact parcel.
Councillor Hyder, did you have anything else
That,
to add?
yep, that's, I'm gonna just, I can take a little drive. I can figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dimanowski looks like he may be, he's
Well, through the
puzzled.
chair,
Go
I
ahead.
was on Medalta for a few years, and it's been a while, but I believe their residence is on this side. It's to the left of the frame that we see right now, if I'm not mistaken.
I feel like Ms. Petrie has assisted here to say exactly
Yeah,
where it is.
it's on the left there. That's the artist in residence.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right on the left? No, that up a little bit, boom,
Yes.
right there. Okay.
If you have any other questions or, okay, for sure. Hoping somebody will make a motion so we could start talking about it.
Hi. Sorry, my tiny little online hand is up.
I see you, Mayor Clark. I'm in the online meeting, but when the presentation's on, it's a bit hard to see. Go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
100%. I see on slide 4, if I'm not mixing up the documents, it says that the intent of rezoning is to accommodate future light industrial commercial use in the existing building on site. So the intent of this land use bylaw amendment is just to allow more types of, is to expand what could go into the existing building. Is that accurate?
Through the chair to Mayor Clark, that is correct, yes.
So ideally, the actual view or landscape wouldn't change. It's just to empower a different type of business potentially to go into the existing building.
Through the chair to Mayor Clark, that, once again, that's correct. This proposal is just for the area around the existing building. The remainder of the site is, there's no, it's not affected by this rezoning, and any new development will have to go through the appropriate development process as well.
Thank you. And through the chair, just a follow up on that. And I believe at a previous meeting, Councillor Dumanowski brought up the historical significance of areas or this area and surrounding area as our historic clay district. What would be the considerations if you got a development permit that indicated, well, we want to pave the entire site and put up, because you did mention it could be, I believe you mentioned it could be like sea cans for storage or trailer storage. What would be the considerations given that this is part of, although it might not be included in the exact area, I know that you had a slide on that, but that it is congruent with the overall aesthetic of historic clay district. Does that make sense?
Through the chair, yes, that makes sense. So things like parking facilities or shipping storage would all be considered discretionary uses, and they are discretionary uses because they can have impacts on the surrounding area. So we heavily rely on the context of the surrounding area when we evaluate proposals in areas like this where there's no I guess vision or real guidance except for in the redevelopment plan. We really rely on the context of the area. So if a proposal came forward for a shipping container, we would have to look at every parcel and then further as well as to see what alignment would have with our municipal development plan and area redevelopment plan. So we have to treat each proposal on a case-by-case base for this property.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Mayor Clark. I don't see any other people to speak at the moment, so I will declare the public hearing for bylaw 4824 closed at 7:22 p.m.
And I move that council gives second reading to bylaw 4824.
Second?
Any commentary, any discussion? Councillor Dubanowski.
Through the chair, I do want to double back on my comment earlier. It's well presented, the case before us, the details is well done. My issue will mimic or largely replicate the concerns I had the last meeting's zoning change. And it pains me to do that because at the same time, I want to see development, I want to see growth, and that's important to the bottom line, literally for the city of Medicine. I do worry about the short-term implications. I'll call them maybe short-sighted. Those are my words. Implications of doing something in haste, only with the thought of, because at this point we don't have any specific development, unlike the last public statutory hearing, we had, imagery, et cetera. I worry about the wholesale change and the permitted uses that would accompany that zoning change. That's typically how it works. We don't usually look at the imagery. In fact, it shouldn't influence our decision, unlike the last proposal. I appreciate it, but it shouldn't technically influence it because the zoning change is exactly that. It could be lots of things. In fact, the last proposal could vary significantly from what was put in front of us, and we would have no capacity to do anything about it because once the zoning change is done, it's done. For me, I would have been comfortable, I would be comfortable with a direct control only because when I think of the depth and breadth of that zoning change and what could go there, it's quite varied and to some extent could be extremely much more industrial, if I can use that terminology for lack of better words, than a different kind of proposal. And the site lines associated with it, potentially noise, implications, et cetera, would vary. And so without that specificity, I'm concerned. I'm also concerned about, again, going back to my earlier comment about it's on the edge, in this case, of historic designated areas. For me, the preservation of those lands is critical. And there's a cost to that. And so, as I said, it pains me to not support this. I suspect it will go through anyway, but I in principle, would have to say I'm opposed. If there were a direct control, I would have probably supported it, but in this case, there isn't. So with all that being said, I will be voting against this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dumanowski. Councillor Hyder.
Thank you, and through the chair. I pretty much echo Councillor Dumanowski's thoughts of this rezoning. I too think that Medelta has worked long and hard, and IXL itself, there's a long-standing history in our community. And we value that, and we should value that as residents. Not knowing what the plan should be, like the other men have brought forward, it does concern me. And just to know what it would appear to be is another concern. So I'm just wanted to let people know I'm not quite convinced yet.
Any other speakers on this motion? Go ahead, Councillor Hirsch.
Well, it's just more clarification. So I haven't spent some time at MPC, so maybe Planner Irwin, can you maybe explain what transpires at the development permit stage? So notice, et cetera, ability for adjacent landowners to have any chance to kind of appeal or voice their opinions. Maybe kind of elaborate a little bit on that for the viewing public and council.
Sure, through the chair. So I'll note a few things. The first one being that there's already a zoning in place, which is mixed use, and business, industrial, and mixed use. They have a lot of overlap. The difference would obviously be the industrial uses, and through our policy, we can determine appropriate uses. The ARP talks about light industrial uses. So when we talk industrial, we're not talking about heavy manufacturing. So business industrial is to focus on primarily indoor industrial uses. So that's why the developer's chosen this location, because it's got an existing building that could accommodate a light industrial use contained within that building. When development permits come forward, there's a lot of public notification in the form of signs on sites. There is one for this rezoning, a sign on the site. There's advertisement in the papers on the city webpage as well. There's lots of ways to get information out and also collect information. And one thing that I'll just note for larger sites like this is, so generally with larger sites, development is done incrementally. It's not uncommon for developers to come forward with an initial idea to start making some of their investment back while they're working on determining what they want for the overall vision of this site. So that's kind of the idea and reason for this, is there's a large site, and whether the developer at this point has a vision for the entire site or a small portion of it, this is just one incremental step to kind of address the overall idea of the plan. So I will note that the developer is here. Whether they're willing to answer any questions or what they like to talk, that'll be up to them to decide. But the focus of this proposal is just for this site, specifically for the change of use for the existing building. So I hope that answers some of the three individuals, all your questions.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? Go ahead, Councillor Sharps.
Thank you, and thank you for the information. I have to tell you, I was just listening to all the comments, and it's amazing how when you have to come into this every meeting on every subject with an open mind, because I actually didn't think of some of the things that Councillor Dumanowski had said, and same with Ms. Petrie when she came down here and gave some of that information. I read it earlier on the weekend, and I thought, I couldn't get on the links that you provided, so I couldn't get onto them till later. And I thought to myself, well, maybe it isn't that bad. And then when Councillor Dumanowski spoke, there's a couple of things that are going through my head. Number one is I am pro-development. That is hands down, I'm pro-development. I am leaning towards, I wish it was more direct control. I think, and I don't want any planner in the room to be upset with me, but I think I'm struggling with the whole process of planning in our community and when they get to voice their opinion. So I guess that in my head is I would hate to see this change, and then they can, when I hear the words, but if they don't like it, they can appeal it. I feel like we're saying to our community, we'll listen to you later. And that just never sits well with me. To me, we have a chance to listen, and not that anybody's going to be upset, but I'd like to hear them. And because of where this area is, it is surrounded with historical, what, I can't remember what it's called, but you know what I mean. Historic clay is what it's called. So, yeah, I'm definitely, and I wasn't at this MPC meeting, so, you know, my partner here is probably ready to kill me right now because I wasn't at MPC, so I did not actually vote in favor of this. And I'm hesitant to do so now, and not because I'm not pro-development. I'm 100% pro-development. But the right things in the right places are just as important as this community grows. So I am right now leaning towards the no button.
Councillor McGrogan?
Thank you. Good presentation, second time through. And I just want to ask you about access. That must be a lift station in the bottom. I just kind of noticed it as I've been listening to the commentary. I take it that site looks like it's going to basically block the access to that facility. Is there a plan to develop a road around it, or how would that occur? Or if you see what I mean, if you go to the picture, any of them actually, I think it's a lift station. It's down at the bottom by the river. Can you just tell me how that would be accessed, and, you know, will it be cut off?
Through the chair to Councillor McGrogan, so there is an access right away through this property for the city, that's a city infrastructure to access.
So the access is through that site then?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
I see somebody's come down the stairs and may want to say something. You're more than welcome to. Please come to the podium and tell us who you are.
Good evening. My name's Michael Bullen. I'm the developer. There is access to answer a few questions. That main gate is shared with city employees, and they access the lift station. There's also a secondary route for when that was flooded that goes around the southeast side, which is basically if the bridge came out, there is an egress route there. The main vision, I guess, on this property, as people have sort of assumed, there is no large vision yet. This is a big, beautiful piece of property that needs a lot of time. My thought process behind it is utilizing these existing buildings. They were built for industrial use. They're set up well for it. I don't plan on a big booming facility in here. This is just small time auto repair, my own construction equipment, which I'm involved with as well. I think it adds a little bit of beauty to the area. The weeds have been trimmed, gravel's been placed. It's a nice, safe spot. There's good communication with the Friends of Madelta. I've chatted with some of them, and yeah, I mean, this is just a very small portion of it, and that's why it's parceled out to basically just include those buildings. This is nowhere near a final design or vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much for answering some of those questions and clarifying. Councillor McGrogan, did you have something else, or that was? I thought I saw Councillor Van Dyke's name pop up. It did. Mayor Clark, I'm not sure if you've got your hand up or not. I'll just confirm if you do or you don't.
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I get to be last to speak, which is interesting. I'm quite supportive of this. Thank you for the presentation and answering all of the questions. I feel like 74 hectares, and this is a use of 3. It's an existing building, and it could be used while the bigger vision develops. So I also feel like there was an opportunity for some of those, for Medalta to come and say if they had any concerns about that historic area. I just think sort of going back to the use of a building to use it again and then keep it safe. Exactly what I thought is if it's occupied, it's in a better position than an unoccupied building. So I don't think I would have supported direct control. I might be really in the minority here, but I don't think I would have supported direct control because I think it causes a lot of stress for developers to not know what a particular council is going to do, as opposed to this is what's possible, and then you get your development permit and the city will make sure what happens from there is logical and suits the city. So I'm supportive of the rezoning. And I think it may well be time for us to vote, seeing nobody else. So let's vote. Mayor Clark, if you could tell us your vote, that would be really great.
My vote is yes.
All right, thank you very much. That passes.
So I move the council gives third and final reading to bylaw 4824 to amend the land use bylaw.
Second.
Let's vote. Mayor Clark, could you tell us your vote?
My vote is yes.
Thank you again. And that passes. Thank you again for the presentation and your attendance today, and to the member of the public, Ms. Petrie, who took the time to both reach out to us in writing and in person. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, committee business. 11.1 verbal update about council chambers. City Manager Mitchell, what do you have to tell us about that?
Thank you. Through the chair, at last week's administrative committee, we had a few inquiries about 11.1 and 11.2. Just some clarification around some things that were changed in council chambers, and also some clarification around addressing council. For the first one, I'll turn it over to Acting Managing Director Robbins.
Thank you. Excuse me, through the chair. I'm going to read an update I got from our Director of Facilities just to give a bit of an overview of what's happened and what is planned to happen. This work to the council chambers was requested in response to the safety and security concerns submitted by staff in delineating council and staff spaces versus public areas, a desire to improve meeting experience by improving sight lines and modernizing the appearance of the space. As part of the identified work in the service request, reconfiguring of elements of council chambers have been partially completed, with further work scheduled during the council break this summer. To date, work within the council chambers has been completed on various items, including repositioning the managing director desk to improve council and staff sight lines on the chamber floor, repositioning the current presentation podium to improve council and staff sight lines on the chamber floor, repositioning of the media desk from the first row gallery to the top row, repositioning of communication staff to the chamber floor. Scheduled work includes addition of public presentation podium in the first row gallery area, replacement of staff presentation podium and repositioning of cabling to accommodate, installation of permanent power supply at relocated media desk location, modification of blackout curtains and application of window treatment to exterior windows, and lastly, update of card access control system on council chambers perimeter doors.
Thank you very much, Acting Managing Director Robinson. Any questions about that from Councillor Sharps? Go ahead.
Thank you for that. And through the chair, I just wanted to say thank you, because on this side of the room, specifically the movement of these chairs and the podium, so I think mostly Councillor Van Dyke and I are affected, but the way it's situated now, we can actually see it. Up until then, we literally were moving our chairs. We had no line of sight to the speaker, so we couldn't see them. It was hard to sometimes see the facial connotations that were happening, and it's just generally hard because you want to make eye contact and listen to your speakers intently when they're here presenting to council. So really appreciate that. So I just can't thank you enough. I think Allison and I maybe said that our very first day saying, who, what? So it is obviously very much appreciated that you've taken that all into consideration for us. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I will say just the movement of the managing director's desks so we could see them. I was also on that side of the room, and so it was very difficult to see you two, not you two, but who's normally there, kind of tucked around the corner, and it did make it difficult to know whether they were, you know, prepared for a question, or it just wasn't very engaging, and we couldn't really tell what was going on. So I didn't have it quite as bad as my fellow counselors on the wing here, but it has made, even this small movement has made a significant improvement, and it will be great to be able to focus on if that's, the plan is to move the public, so when the public is speaking to us, we would all see them from this. I think that'll make a really big improvement, so thank you for that. Did you want to comment on 11.2 while you've got my attention and everyone else's?
Thank you, and through the
Also,
chair.
I have my hand up, just FYI.
Oh, for sure. Go ahead, Mayor Clark. Was it on 11.1 or 11.2?
It was on 11.1.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I missed you there.
I'm just wondering about cost and whether this will be a budget amendment or will be part of the upcoming budget, and what the cost will be of the reconfiguration.
City Manager Mitchell, do you know the answer to that question?
Yes, thank you, and through the chair, it is part of the current budget, but we will advise council about that moving forward. I believe it's coming to admin committee Thursday of this week, and then the information will come forward to council, but it is part of the existing budget. Thank you.
Just if I may follow up, my recollection of our budget discussions last time, like our initial budget discussions that we had for our 2-year budget initially, was that we rejected upgrades to the chamber. So is this a separate line item, or what line item are we thinking here?
Through the chair to Mayor Clark, it's under the City Manager Contingency Fund, which is already a pre-approved budget item.
Does that answer your question, Mayor Clark?
It does, thank you.
And we'll receive more information shortly, in a couple of weeks, I would imagine, maybe after the break. All right, thank you very much for that. 11.2, requests to address council.
Thank you. The second information request that we had was under how do members of the public come and present to council. So first, I just wanted to read from our current procedural bylaw, section 721. Members of the public who wish to speak at a meeting, excluding a public hearing, must submit a completed request to address form to the city clerk. And then it is considered by the administrative committee. We had a robust discussion at last week's administrative committee, and because the administrative committee in its current form does have members of council on it, we do get political input. But since we're doing an overall committee review, which is on my desk at present, this is something that we would like to look at and see if this is where addressing council should fit in the administrative committee, or should it be moved to something else like an agenda review committee, which has 3 members of council, city manager and city clerk, which might be a more appropriate format. But I think it should be part of the larger discussion when we look at the committee overall review that should be coming forward in August. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Clark?
Thank you. This is a very important discussion, and I'm glad that we are beginning it. I'm not sure what the next steps are, whether a briefing note will come forward, but to Councillor Robbins, I'm sure you would ask this anyway, but what do other jurisdictions do? That would be one of my questions. I know that some jurisdictions allow a certain amount of time if anyone wants to come, unless it's, you know, offensive in some way, or similar to, you know, the proclamation or you know, advertising or whatever else, where, you know, there would be a certain rubric for, does it meet the basic civility rules? and if it meets those rules, then anyone can have 5 minutes. So I'm just wondering, that's probably one way to do it. There's probably 10 or 12 other ways to do it. Just what do other jurisdictions doing, and what's working really well? What have they seen in terms of public engagement in a positive way that's respectful and honors public participation in their municipal government?
Go ahead, City Manager Mitchell.
Thank you, through the chair and to Mayor Clark. Certainly, the overall committee review will be looking at jurisdictional scans, not only of this item, but also the other items as well, and also the makeup of the administrative committee, because we are an anomaly jurisdictionally, and I knew that before I arrived here, and certainly the jurisdictional scan has proved that out. So those recommendations will all be in the larger committee boards and commission report that will be coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sharps?
Thank you. Through the chair. So I'm just going to jump right on yours before I go back. So I've had the pleasure of attending at Administrative Committee for the last 2 weeks, and I think I did before, I think Mayor Clark might have been on holidays and it just was my turn. So I went and I found it very interesting, because that's the place what decides what happens in administration that's coming down to council. And as a member of council, I think I was the only one at the table at the time, and I thought, man, I don't think I should be the only one hearing this. So because when we talk about council, we talk about the will of council. So I don't speak for the will of council. So when they bring it to administration and they're deciding what to bring it in, I would like to be heard, but I don't speak for all of council, so I don't want it to appear that I speak for all of council. So it's really important that you're doing that review. I think it was great eavesdropping the entire time, but I sat at the back and just shut up because I really don't think I can speak for council at that time. Having said that, I will say that one of the things this council, I believe, has done slightly differently, there's been a few more open houses. We've done, I think, 4 or 5 now with the chamber. We've done one at the Viner Center. And I do think, I was talking with one citizen that's really quite upset and said, well, how come there's no public stuff? And I said, well, there is. And I told her what there was, and she goes, well, that isn't good enough. And I said, okay, okay, that's her opinion, and it's just. So how do we set it up that they are heard? But to Mayor Clark's point, respectfully, without coming down here and just saying, well, I want to come down there and tell you you're all stupid. Well, that's not what this is about. This is coming down, having respectful conversation, interacting and trying to make our community better. That's what needs to continue to happen. So if we can figure that out, and we can find a way to have more public interaction, I, for one, will try to attend every one of those to the best of my ability. I also don't want administration taking the hit for your decisions that could be potentially our decisions. So, and I feel like that's happening right now. So when you're making a decision that, something's not coming to council because it's going through the administrative system, 2 things are happening. Number 1, you're getting the blame, and well, you made the decision. But number 2 is council's also getting the blame, and we didn't even know it was happening till after. So I think if we're going to get a blame, maybe we should be part of the decision. So those are just my thoughts on it.
Go ahead, City Manager Mitchell.
Thank you, through the chair. And just for everybody's awareness, I know council knows this, but for the public too, we're in the process of doing a public administration policy that will look at how do we engage with the public. And I know Director Graham is working on that and will probably give us an update very soon. I do think that it's really interesting that we're doing this committee review. I think it's really important and timely, and it'll help us run more efficiently, which is always a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Mitchell. I will say, having participated in the administration committee meeting, what a better definition of what role of council is at that committee, if council's even, any council members even required at the committee. It seems to me like the part that we need to really be involved with is what goes on the agenda. So what comes here, how you discuss it, how you prepare your presentations, that's, to me, a different issue than the agenda committee and what comes here. And we have 3 members of council on the agenda committee, so hopefully you get sort of a balanced point of view and a reasonable length agenda, which we're all kind of always hoping for. And so I thought that the agenda committee might be a better place to say, when we had requests from the public, that review could happen there, but it'll ultimately be up to all of council. But that was just what we discussed, just so everyone knows at the agenda committee what we were discussing. And my concern was, if members of the public want to come and speak on a certain topic, how do we have the balanced perspective? I mean, there's lots of strong opinions in our community, and I value all of them. But if someone's going to come and speak strongly, where's the balance side? Because council, like we are in this, symmetrical space, always supposed to be balancing. And how do we get that balance is another sort of philosophical question, and I'm not really sure how to address that. But just as you're working through it, those are my thoughts. Mayor Clark, did you want to add something on 11.2?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the commentary about the administrative committee that was, I believe, intended to be an executive committee, which the chairperson generally is on. I know that we have probably different views about what the role of the mayor ought to be, but I was at the meeting that Councillor Sharps was at of the administrative committee. Well, she noted I was on vacation. It is intended to be more of an executive committee, which is, allowing the chairperson to kind of have a role in the filtering or focusing of what does come to council before the agenda committee. But I suppose we will have that discussion when City Manager Mitchell's briefing note comes to council.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Seeing no other commentary, we could move on to 11.3. City Manager Mitchell, do you want to introduce this item?
Thank you. Through the chair, this is coming back after we've had it at council. And just to advise council, as you know, we've been working on our policies and procedures. We are attempting, as we move forward, updating our policies and implementing new policies, making sure that we're separating the policies from the procedures, and we will be doing that. However, given that this was brought forward in the iteration that the policies and procedures were collective, we continued down that path because we didn't want to start all over again. So this policy will be in that format, and moving forward, the other policies will separate. And I will turn it over to Director Koken to give us some highlights. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So Leah Haney from the City Solicitor Office is here with me as well. So we are bringing back the whistleblower policy with the direction from Council back in April for the policy to reflect independent investigator, independent adjudicator, and to consider the fraud policy within as well. So we will take questions and have that. It's also to note that once the policy is approved, we would commence on an RFP for the third-party system, for an independent third-party system for whistleblower, to keep that confidentiality for staff. What we would do then is the procedures for that implementation would come back to the admin committee only. So I just wanted to bring that to all of your attention. And with that, if there's any questions, Leah and I are prepared for that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. I only had one question, and I apologize because I couldn't find it. Complaints, are they going to People Services or are they going to the legal department?
To reference the,
So you will see in the procedures through the chair that we've implemented a table similar to what you'd find in the Respectful Workplace policy, where once that phone line is implemented, they would refer it to a responsible investigator in accordance with a table based on who is the respondent and who is the complainant to a complaint made under this policy.
Okay, yeah, so let me word that better. Who holds responsibility for this within the city. So as a employee, I might call this number and but who's going to hold ultimate responsibility for this? Is it individually that it's going to be held, or is it one, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's usually still a department that holds accountability and responsibility.
Yes, currently I believe that is under People Services.
Just checking.
And through the chair, I'll just add one thing, that when we do go through the RFP procurement for the third party, that is during that scope of work and during that whole process, we can determine where those calls would go and how they would be triaged. So it may not be People Services from the line itself, from the whistleblower line. It could be triaged through the city solicitor's office. It could be triaged in many different ways, but then it would go to the department that it would be pertinent to.
Okay,
If
I
that
just want,
helps.
yes, and that
Okay.
I figured, I just want to see who the holder of the.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about the whistleblower policy or procedure, I guess, this time? One last time, we'll look at a procedure. Ever, yeah. All right, I don't see any further questions, so thank you very much for the presentation.
I
and for
do have
sticking
one,
with it.
sorry.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Clark, go ahead.
My tiny hand is up again. Where are the definitions? I apologize. I did a find function. So they're in, sorry, now I see them. In one is the definitions, but I couldn't find the definition for investigator. It's capitalized, but I didn't see the definition. I apologize if I'm missing it.
Through the chair, no, that's fine, Mayor Clark. Under 1.11, we have responsible investigator under definitions.
Okay, so there's also an external investigator in addition to that? Within that definition?
Yes, through the chair, the responsible investigator could be an external investigator, but that is not intended to be a separate defined term. I'm not sure if that answers your question. The external investigator would be appointed by someone within internal to the city.
Based on the table.
Yes.
Yes. Does that answer your question, Mayor Clark?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Haney, for the answer. And Director Cohen, thank you. Go ahead.
All right. I move that council approves rescinding the current whistleblower policy 8045 in its entirety and replace it with the revised whistleblower policy 8046.
I'll second.
Thank you both very much. Any questions, comments?
Sorry, is that 8041 or 8045? You said 45. No, that's okay, I just want to make sure it's right.
8041.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I
Good
just-
catch, Councillor Sharp.
You don't have any comments other than that quick correction? Okay. All right, with seeing no comments, let's vote. Mayor Clark, could you tell us your vote, please?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And that's unanimous. Moving on to 11.4. City Manager Mitchell, did you want to introduce that item?
Thank you, through the chair. This has been through Development and Infrastructure, and I would like to introduce Director Popoff to introduce our presentation on off-site levies. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Popoff. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Today we're going to be presenting the off-site levy bylaw for your consideration. And this bylaw is an important mechanism that is prepared by municipalities across Alberta to help us cost share with our developers off-site improvements that occur due to growth that occurs within our municipality. We've engaged with all our affected stakeholders, and we've prepared a very comprehensive update. And I will ask our municipal engineer, Conrad Westerson, to provide you with the details of the process to date and to present the bylaw for your consideration.
Good evening, members of council. I'm here today to brief you on the proposed amendment to the offsite levy bylaw and rate update. This presentation will identify what an offsite levy is, a quick review of the process to update the model and the rates and prepare the bylaw amendment. I will identify the efforts towards ensuring good engagement and consultation with our development community stakeholders, and clearly identify the changes made and the proposed new rates, and how they align with Council's strategic plan. Pardon me. As you recall, an offsite levy is a funding mechanism to support and build offsite infrastructure that benefits all development. It is not a tax. The offsite levy is regulated through the Municipal Government Act, Offsite Levy Regulations, and the City of Medicine Hat Offsite Levy Bylaw number 4157. Rates are determined using the Corvus Offsite Levy Model and Framework. This is a program that is used by many municipalities in Alberta and standardizes the approach to ensure continuity. It uses input from developers and internal partner groups, including municipal works, energy and utilities, planning and finance, and it relies upon best practices and regulations ensuring equitable outcomes for the development stakeholders within the community. The goal of the update was to meet the requirements of Offsite Levy Bylaw 4157 to review the rates at least every 2 years and to bring the offsite levy model up to 2022 from the previous 2020 data. To do so required several reviews of all offsite levy projects, costs, staging plans, and benefiting areas with the development stakeholders. The intent of the offsite levies and the offsite levy model is to maintain a fair and equitable, transparent offsite levy framework between the city, developers, builders, taxpayers, and ratepayers in terms of their responsibilities relative to the servicing costs of development within the city. Updates that occurred during this iteration of the review were a change to benefiting Area 12 with the creation of Area 13 down in the bottom right-hand corner. This accounted for 2 specific projects which will only benefit Area 13. Additionally, there were updates to the growth staging plan based on discussions with the development stakeholders and their current growth and development plans in relation to electrical capacity issues. A review and update of the offsite levy project list included estimated and actual project costs and benefiting area allocations for all projects. There were new projects added to this list this cycle, and it was confirmed previously that offsite levies at this time do not include facilities. That would be fire, police, libraries, or recreation facilities, as this would require a separate decision by City Council to change the existing offsite levy bylaw to include them. The City of Medicine Hat uses the International Association of Public Participation Consultation Guidelines for stakeholder engagement regarding offsite levies. This means we meet on a regular basis with our development stakeholders to discuss offsite levies and any projects, costs, benefiting areas, rates, or other issues that may arise. The feedback received from the stakeholders informs the offsite levy inputs to the model and assists to keep the community engaged and updated. MGA 648.3 requires the city to consult with stakeholders before amending the bylaw. This has been accomplished by the multiple and continued stakeholder engagement sessions held annually. The Municipal Government Act identifies that any amendments to the offsite levy bylaw must be advertised. The MGA does not require the city to hold a public hearing for offsite levies. Stakeholder engagements will continue to be held annually and multiple times throughout each subsequent year pertaining to all proposed offsite levy project costs, benefiting areas, and proposed rate changes to ensure this requirement to engage with our development community continues to be met. The city provides multiple opportunities for discussions on the issue of offsite levies. There are 4 DAP meetings per year and approximately 6 Build City of Medicine Hat meetings, providing the opportunity for stakeholder questions or concerns to be addressed to staff regarding the offsite levy issues. Individual developer engagements are held to ensure any issues surrounding our particular staging plans, affected benefiting areas, projects, or any other issues are identified and discussed. This year, the issue of electric power availability impacted the entire staging plan and shifted it approximately 2 years out. Any meetings result in multiple communications to all developers to identify agendas, records of discussions, including questions and answers for any issues discussed, and all developers are addressed on all communications pertaining to the offsite levies. In October of 2023, an update regarding proposed changes was forwarded to all developers as part of the invite to discuss the proposed rate changes and reasons behind them. The initial bylaw amendment and proposed rate update stakeholder engagement session was held 27th of November 2023, with a follow-up meeting to discuss what we heard on the 28th of February 2024. Again, all developers received the pertinent information prior to the meeting and a summary of the questions and answers of what we heard after the meeting. All stakeholder input received in consultation was and is considered and informs the offsite levy updates and any proposed changes to projects, benefiting area, or rates. Administration has made a promise that continuing engagements with stakeholders will occur whenever new offsite levy issues arise. A quick summary of the financials of the offsite levy shows that there are currently $408 million worth of projects identified in the model. Of these, $149 million are attributed as the developer's share, with $257 million as the city's portion. And there are currently $1.113 million that are attributed to grants or as part of other municipalities' shares. This summary map identifies the current and proposed rates as associated with the areas impacted. As you can see, there is an additional Area 13 in the southeast corner of the city. Overall, the average rate has increased from last year's rate of $103,205 per hectare to $111,785 per hectare. This is an overall 9.6% increase that is attributed primarily to the increases in costs of projects due to increases in material costs 2021 and 2022 due to COVID, and to the changes due to the minor change of Area 12 and 13 being split out. It's interesting to note that inflation during this period of time in Alberta was at least 8.7%. In a comparison of offsite levy rates between some of the similar-sized communities in Alberta, it was identified that the City of Medicine Hat has a relatively low offsite levy rate per hectare. This comparison is not an exact science, as it is very difficult to compare methodologies. The infrastructure requirements and the ways communities deal with them is significantly different, impacting the overall differences. The collection of offsite levies meets or fulfills these areas of City Council strategic plans. Under Economic Evolution 2.1 and 2.4, under Partnerships and Governments 4.8 and 4.10, and under Resilience and Stability 6.8 and 6.10. In conclusion, it is recommended that City Council approve the amending bylaw 4803 to amend the offsite levy bylaw 4157.
Thank you very much. I believe Councillor Hirsch has the first question.
Yes, thank you. So every time we do a review, and I've been through a few, needless to say, it is a bit of a contentious discussion, of course, because it does drive a little bit of discussion in terms of the formula of that growth kind of drives growth. And I understand and quite frankly was along for the ride back in the day when we weren't doing the reviews that often, so thank you for that. So I did a little bit of research and I went online and saw the Alberta Munis actually has a great document called Offsite Levies, a Municipality's Manual for Capital Cost Recovery Due to New Development. And in it, it was interesting that there is a provision in there that council may choose to hear from stakeholders through a non-statutory public hearing. And it did cross my mind for a couple different reasons. One, you know, around this council table, we talk about transparency, and I think if a developer feels that they want to be heard, and regardless of, and you do a phenomenal amount of public consultation, don't get me wrong, and I heard it, and the feedback is that that's the case. The challenge is if you or the body becomes a no to a concern, it doesn't matter how many events that you host, it's still kind of a no. And it would be interesting just to get a perspective from this council to hear some of the positions, because in some cases there are going to be taxpayers that are spending considerable dollars, upwards of millions of dollars, and it would be probably beneficial in the spirit of transparency for us to decide, and then certainly get a perspective from that individual as a developer, but of course have the ability for staff, et cetera, to rebut. The second thing that I'm considering is the fact that the City of Medicine Hat is a developer. So I would love to be able to have that level again of transparency where a person could hold a viewpoint or an observation or a perception that is maybe not realistic, but yet would say, hey, we're doing the offsites, I'm shouldering more than what the city as a developer is shouldering. And it is not at all, and it could be not at all anything to do with the fairness quotient, because it's been hammered into me, believe me, in terms of what offsite levies do, the reasoning, the formula, and the listing, the subtraction and additions of the capital projects. I get all that. I'm just trying to consider, because inevitably, and we got it this time around, where there's been some requests by developers just to get some feedback and to be able to have that sort of discussion in open council. So this might not be the case. I know we're talking about and we're talking about approving of it, but I'm just thinking maybe that's something of a takeaway that we can start considering. So that's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hirscher. The part of the process we're in, of course, is asking questions, but also eventually there'll be a motion for first reading, and so there'll be hopefully some gap in time where that could be considered.
So let me formulate that. Is that possible for us in a question to have a non-statutory hearing, and what would that look like?
Yes, we could do that, absolutely.
City Manager Mitchell, did you refer that or want to add anything?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
So Mayor Clark, you're number 3 in line, but I do see your hand, but I've got 2 before you, so just stick with us here. We have Councillor Sharps next.
First question, do you want me to put a motion on the table, or happy to continue with questions?
Questions about the presentation are at the point that we're at.
No, I just want to, I actually, it's like Councillor Hirsch was like reading my notes, but I know you can't read my writing, so I know you didn't. So verbatim, I have the same concern, and even though Municipal Engineer Westerson, I will tell you, you do a great presentation, and it makes this actually an interesting subject, so I appreciate that. And I don't doubt the integrity of anyone in that department as far as these numbers, but it's that perception to me. We are the biggest, I think we're the biggest developer, so to me, I want to make sure that that perception of fairness is there, that it is fair, and that they're heard. And I know that, I don't think I've had complaints that you weren't listening, but I have had complaints that we weren't. So I think that's why I think it is very important to have a non-statutory. So I would like to show support for that, and let me know if you want a motion on the table.
I think I'll get through the comments first. Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. So question, thanks very much for the presentation. I think as we've mentioned in a previous similar presentation, it's an interesting topic that I had no experience on prior to this. And I guess the thing that I've been wondering, and I did owe the comments made by Councillor Hirsch and Sharps, is how do we ensure that, being we are a developer, the City of Medicine Hat, how do we ensure that our other developers feel that they're being treated equitably and fairly, being that we would be in some cases competing against them for the sale of property? So how do you do that?
Chair, through to Councillor McGrogan. An off-site levy bylaw, what it does is the way we've got it set up is you have a piece of land which is slated for development. So it could be the city, it could be another developer that's developing that piece of land. That piece of land, the infrastructure that's on that land will be paid for by the developer and put in place. And then we inherit that as a city. When we act as a developer, we do the same thing, is we put the infrastructure in and it goes through our approval process. Developments cause a need for what are called off-site levy improvements, and those are perhaps an extra set of street lights. They could mean a turn lane. They could mean the upsizing of water and sewer pipes. So almost every single large development will cause a need for what are called off-site improvements. Each developable parcel will have different needs. So when we go out and we consult with the stakeholders, we say, okay, Mr. Developer, you have the following area for land. We're engaging you. We're looking at coming up with a formula for cost sharing. We believe it should be a 50-50 split on this because existing residents get a benefit, and so do the residents that your development is putting together. They'll also benefit from this, and we'll accommodate that extra traffic by putting these improvements in. So we break it up. So the city will pay its fair share, and we look at a 25-year time frame. Some of our projects in the future, 50, 60 years down the road, perhaps, we don't have a costing or know what those projects will be because we're not sure what that development will be quite yet. So we try and take a 25-year time frame, and then we create a list of projects to which certain other to which we attach a need for costing and how we attribute that costing. So it's variable for each development. It's not across the board. It's dependent on each development area. So that is how we're putting this together. So when we're talking about what those offsite levy improvements are, it's a comprehensive process, key to a specific area for each of those developers. So I hope that provides a bit of clarity.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Director Popoff. That was very helpful and very elegantly stated. You simplified it, which really helps. Mayor Clark, you were on the list next, but I don't see your hand up anymore. So I'll give you a second to see if you want to ask a question or.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to indicate with all of this has already been said, the city pays offsite levies when it's the developer. And in addition, I do support a non-stat public hearing.
Okay, thank you very much for adding that. Councillor Hyder is next.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for your presentation this evening. And I too have learned a lot about offsite levies, which I never thought I'd know this much about in my life. But I do agree we need a non-statutory hearing. And I just, like all of us, we get calls from the community, and I'm not sure if the developers feel that they're being heard. So with that, I think it would be great to have a consultation with everyone and so that they get the need to have their questions answered. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and my 2 cents is, yeah, I think it would be time to have a hearing.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Through the chair, thank you for the presentation. A few thoughts, if I may. I've saved some for tonight. So, I mean, there are a number of arguments or questions that have come up that are very appropriate, and I've lived through a few of these as well, like Councillor Hirsch, and I can, even though there is no requirement to hold a public hearing, historically we have done that. It inevitably will always, with certainty, guaranteed, lead to petitions against the set rates. That's not going to be a shocker to anyone. And that's not to suggest that any argument or petition against it is ill-conceived or being calculated in error, or to suggest that we are somehow, which I think sometimes it kind of is distilled from those conversations, is that the city has the ability or is perceived to have the ability to steer development in a way, because we are the big, probably the biggest single landholder. There are a lot of landholders within our jurisdiction, but we are the single landholder. Therefore, we have a proportionate or disproportionate say in how and where development occurs, which obviously triggers off-site levies. That argument has never not been in front of this horseshoe, I guarantee you, since the day that time capsule was laid. And it will be there going forward. And it's, again, not to suggest it's not, there's some legitimacy or otherwise to it, but it will be there. But I do believe, obviously, the requirement under the provincial guidelines is to engage with stakeholders, so you're doing that. It is a requirement to review it, you're doing that. So we've always done that. Just how open we are to having them before us at the time of decision-making is probably what is being debated mostly today. We do hear from developers, some maybe more than others or less than others, but we do hear. I'm comforted significantly that your stakeholder consultations with the likes of Build and others are have yielded the kind of opportunities that they would have needed to be heard. I've heard from those groups many times over the years when they're feeling like they're not being heard, and I have not. Just the truth be told, I've not heard from them in a couple of years. So to me, that suggests that there is engagement. The difference in the end, philosophically or otherwise, is are they feeling heard or are they feeling like they're able to persuade? Persuasion is probably part of their counter argument, is that they were heard, and I don't think if we do look to have them here at a public hearing, non-statutory public hearing, that none of them will be able to say that they weren't heard or they weren't given opportunities for that. I'm certain of that. It's a question of whether they feel their arguments are persuading or moving the costings accordingly. You mentioned something in your preamble around the offsites. We do have one of the lowest offsites in the province. We've made some changes to how we calculate offsites, and I want to get this right. So fact checkers out there, you can check. It's around the amount of municipal assist, or what burden does the municipality take on as a landholder and a developer, because that is unique against what others do. But we are, historically, our municipal assist is second to no other municipality in the province. So I just wanted to set some of the things historically straight as far as I see them, certainly. But I will end with an agreement with others around here around having a non-statutory public hearing. We can expect that we will have disagreement, and that's healthy dialogue. But I am confident in what you've put forward so far as a setting the stage, if you will, for the next bylaw review to be passed by this council. But I would echo those who have said around the table. I think it's okay to despite our every efforts to have public consultations and do that according to the provincial regulations, that having a public hearing will kind of be the final display of our ability to hear from the public, which I think in the end will yield and put confidence in the decision that we ultimately make on this. So I will echo that.
Thank you, Councillor Demanowski. Councillor Hirsch.
So I just want procedurally, and it'll be call your chair.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to refer that item I just brought up to committee, but I will wait because we are talking about first moving this item first. So
right.
I'm just looking for consideration and how you want to handle that.
For sure. So I've sort of left it as commentary on the process because everyone or a lot of people seem to think a non-statutory public hearing after you spoke of it would be a way to proceed. The motion that was going to be for first reading of bylaw, if that was the recommendation, could include a non-statutory hearing within the first reading, or it could go back to committee. So I was just sort of canvassing process before we went to any kind of motion, any comments, any questions. So but I don't see anyone else on the speaker list. Oh, yes, City Solicitor Bullock.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out a procedural technicality about non-statutory public hearings. It's from our procedure bylaw. So you can have one, it just requires a council resolution. And in that resolution, you have to establish the date, time, and place for that non-statutory public hearing. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you very much. And City Solicitor Bullock, am I right that we could have a motion for the first reading of bylaw and then include the date and time of the public hearing in that motion?
That's correct. I mean, the bylaw would have to skip a meeting before coming back for second and third reading anyway to do the advertising. So it could come back to the meeting in August for your public hearing at that time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. City Manager Mitchell, do you have any comments about timing, if that's what council decided?
No, I think that will be more than appropriate. We can meet the August timeline. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll see if anyone wants to make a motion then.
Yep. So can I just add it in to this motion, to the first reading? So if I move that council give first reading to bylaw 4803 to revise offsite levy bylaw and include a non-statutory public hearing for August 19th, 2024.
Would we need to say in council chambers in Medicine Hat?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll second.
I'm not emotionally attached to how that looks. 19th. 15th is a Thursday. As the chair of that committee, my preference would be to just get this on the table versus sending it back to us to send back here. So.
Could we also add the time of 6:30? Just to be very clear
Sure.
and online with
More
our
than
procedure
happy.
bylaw?
I'll take that friendly amendment.
There's no such thing as a friendly amendment, but
Well-
we're being friendly about amending, so it's good.
Darren?
All right, do I have a seconder to that motion?
I second it.
All right, we had multiple people wanting to second it. Any discussion, commentary, now that we've bandied about process a little bit? There'll be more discussion to be had, but any discussion about this motion? Seeing none?
Nope.
Oh, Councillor Hirsch, go ahead.
Well, so I appreciate Councillor Sharp's in terms of moving this forward. Quite honestly, it surprised me to get that level of support at this point in time. My concern is, and I'll support it, quite frankly, I don't have a problem with that, but I'm always consideration of kind of, let's call it legislation on the fly. And I would rather, my intention was actually to make a motion to, actually, I'll read it a little bit here, but review for D&I, Development and Infrastructure, to review the merits of the offsite levy procedures by adding a non-statutory hearing. So at this point in time, I'll support it. I just heard from staff as well that they'd be amenable to it. But I do actually wanted a committee to actually have a wholehearted discussion on it, on the pros and the cons, and come back to this council in the form of a briefing note for consideration. So I wanted to give it a little bit of due process. Having said that, I think we've got consensus here that we'll have it at this point in time. But that's kind of what, if it's okay, I would like to follow it up with a motion to defer back to for further discussion or really looking at the pros and cons of that. So if it's amenable with Madam Chair, we can call the vote on this particular matter as amended, and then I'd like to make a motion.
I'm fine with that plan, but Councillor Van Dyke has some comments. No, she's waved me off. Okay, she doesn't have comments. All right. I'm just going to make sure I haven't lost. No, Mayor Clark doesn't have her hand up. So let's proceed to vote on this motion. Mayor Clark, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous. And Councillor Hirsch, I think you might want to make a motion, I heard.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I move that Development and Infrastructure review the offsite levy procedures to determine the merits of adding a non-statutory hearing and to report back to council through briefing note for consideration.
That was lovely, but you're going to have to say it a lot.
Okay.
A lot more
Oh,
slowly if you want it typed.
I apologize.
I'm trying.
So I move that development and infrastructure review the off-site levy procedures to determine the merits of adding a non-statutory hearing merits of adding a non-statutory hearing and to report back to council through briefing note for consideration. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Any discussion of this motion? Councillor Van Dyke, please.
Thank you. This gave me the perfect opportunity to make my comment that I had previously. So I support having a non-statutory hearing. I appreciate this, though, coming back to have a more comprehensive discussion on this, because my concern is that we know that the city has done a tremendous amount of consultation with the development community, and I do have concerns on how something like this is structured and the perception it gives, and I think Councillor Dumanowski touched on this, that it can give the appearance of persuasion or lobbying on the part of a very specific group, and trying to always keep in mind that we need to be fair to all residents and taxpayers in the community, not just to one specific group within the community. So I appreciate this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Well, just to dovetail on that, when I reflect back, we had non-statutory public hearings. I think where we made the pivot, I mean, staff already said there's no requirement to have one, but that doesn't mean they can't. They can elect to do it. I think really they just snap their fingers and it happens. I don't know if we need to necessarily evaluate it, but I will support the motion. I think it's mostly, when I reflect back, prior to us having these broader consultations and having the likes of Build and other groups like that who worked with staff regularly, that was when we had the need for those non-statutory public hearings where we would be hearing a lot of arguments of persuasion because they weren't heard or they didn't feel heard. This is many, many years ago. So ironically, we're almost flipping it again, and we're saying maybe we're doubling down. We're saying we're going to continue to do that because that is a good process. I guess my point is the fact that we haven't heard we've heard some, we've all got the emails, persuasion, but they're not unlike the ones we've heard in the past, and I'm not saying we shrug them off. They're individually and each time important and unique, but we're going to have the public consultation, and then at the same time, we're going to bring them before us, and we know for a fact, 100%, no crystal ball required, we're going to be lobbied, to your point, if I can borrow your words, and we're going to be challenged, and that's good, that's healthy. In the end, I guess the reminder for myself, I'll say it, and for all of us, will be that in the end, wherever we offset or create a higher municipal assist, somebody's paying for it. And you know who it is? The taxpayer. So either the developer in their development stage, as they build out this community with us, hand in hand, or the taxpayer, somebody's paying. And so in the end, we'll just have to be reminded of that, and I'll be certain to bring that back at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we could proceed to vote. I don't see, Councillor Hirsch, go ahead. Are you sure?
So I appreciate all the commentary, and I guess where I'm coming from is the nice thing about what we're talking about is it is formulaic. It is a ability for us to say, it's written, people understand how we arrive in terms of the formula. So I'm not as concerned on the lobby piece, because quite frankly, the thing that really drove my consideration on this is the fact that it's been open meetings that staff's been doing and doing a phenomenal job. Frequency is high. The real measuring stick is where if staff's doing a great job, we actually won't have anyone at the non-statutory hearing because all questions have been answered. And I guess for me, I would like the consideration of any type of other bylaw. We just had a hearing on different land classifications, et cetera, people that were able to make some commentary relative to that really had no skin in the game. I mean, no disrespect to people that came forward, but we're talking about people that didn't really have, they just had, it was an adjacent development, and they just had an opinion. But we're talking about individuals here that are spending millions of dollars in some cases. And for me, I just want to have the ability, if I think fairly and transparently, I think that's where I'm driving. So it is just an act of fairness in my mind. And again, no slight to staff or anything, because realistically, they do a great job in a controversial environment, and we've dealt with it all the time. So it's not even a slight to staff. I want to reemphasize that and underline it. It's the fact that I think about those things and just wanted to kind of have that discussion at your D&I meeting. So thank you for that.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Through the chair, I'm not going to say anything against what Councillor Hirsch said. Him and I get along very well, just so you know, for the public's concern. My two thoughts. One, more of a process. So when we have people come before us, I would like to see or consideration be given to, for example, if BUILD is coming, that one representative from BUILD will come and speak at that non-statutory public hearing. One representative from the Chamber of Commerce, one representative, rather than death by 1,000 cuts approach, because that doesn't necessarily yield a better or different result. My only, even though I'm supporting this, my only other thought around having these regular public consultations or stakeholder consultations that staff have worked tirelessly to develop and engage, there's a little bit of a jeopardy that will start to dismantle or not work, because they will know they'll ultimately have the ability to come to that podium before the decision maker at the end. And I am a little bit worried about that. So perhaps your review is more warranted than I thought.
Yes, City Manager Mitchell.
Thank you, through the chair. And to Councillor Dumanowski's point, we always should be looking at our processes to see if they're effective or not effective. So we're certainly, and Councillor Hirsch mentioned this as well too, so we don't have any concerns with revisiting them. And I think to your point about lobbying or not lobbying, I do think it's more effective if one group has one spokesperson. But council, as you all know, ultimately will have to take away what they hear with the public participation and make the difficult decision on what's best for the entire community. So just being conscious of that. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Mitchell. I'll say this, that there's on various decisions that we're called upon to make. There's always somebody who will email and say, you should do this, or you should have done this, or call or run into the street, you should do this. And I would rather that sort of, they're not doing anything wrong. Of course, they're trying to, give me their opinion on what I should be doing, but I would rather them give me their opinion in public so everyone can know. So I'm very, as you all know from sitting here 3 years, is if I make a decision, I lay the factual background upon which I made that decision. And so in this situation, if I'm receiving emails, which I'm sure we all have from the development community, and they want to let us know the impact of a decision we're going to make, I would rather them stand there and say it so I can ask them questions and it could be in the public, not that I'm going to cross-examine them. I just really want to know more from their sniff at me. I'm not going to cross-examine them, no. I should encourage them to come for sure, because I do want to know the impact on development in the community. But like others have said, I appreciate all of the work that's gone into to consult extensively and then take, this is what we heard and this is what we heard. And all of that work has been very well done, and this is no criticism of that. This is just, if people are going to email me opinions on what I should do, I would rather, just like you're asking us to do something, this is what you recommend, I would rather them do it in public so we can talk about exactly the impact on the community and reach the balance that City Manager Mitchell just mentioned. So shall we vote on this? Oh, sorry, Councillor Sharps, go ahead.
Thank you. I just had a quick follow-up. I just wanted to say it's not always about just us at the table and administration. We have a very hyper-vigilant community right now that's very interested in what's happening. And there's just a lot of community members that really do want to understand this and want to be an active part of our community. So if they can learn with us and ask questions, I think it's an opportunity for all of us. So some of the conversations I've had since this was on the agenda was not an accusatory or staff isn't doing it, more like, I didn't understand that. I don't understand how we get there. What do we? So there was just an understanding that when they sometimes complain that we're not growing as fast, well, what's behind that? Why isn't developers building houses? Why aren't they doing this? Because there's a whole world behind them that happens. So this is really good opportunity for our community to understand this whole process better too. So just wanted you to know this wasn't, I think you've heard it enough. It isn't, we don't trust you. This is an opportunity.
All right, seeing no other people to speak, let's vote on Councillor Hirsch's motion. Mayor Clark, how do you vote?
Yep. Can I please have the motion restated? There was a number of changes, so it's to send it back to DNI for review of the process in relation to the offsite levy.
Sure, I'll read it to you, Mayor Clark. It's up on the screen now. So council approves that the Development and Infrastructure Committee review the offsite levy procedures to determine the merits of adding a non-statutory hearing and to report back to council by briefing note for consideration.
Thank you. My vote is yes.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So that is unanimous. All right, moving on. Thank you so much for the presentation. 11.5, Habitat for Humanity, request for reduced sales price. Would you wish to introduce that, City Manager Mitchell?
I will, thank you. This has previously came forward to Energy, Land and Environment Committee, and I will turn it over to Managing Director Pankos for an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Through the chair, we have, through our land and real estate team, received a request from Habitat for Humanity, as mentioned. They're seeking either donation or a reduced discount parcel of city land in support of their affordable home ownership program. And while we certainly recognize the tangible and intangible benefits that this organization brings to our community, the actual mandate for land and real estate is to transact at fair market value with targeting net profits back into the city. So since this particular ask is inconsistent with that mandate, we are bringing this to council for your direct consideration. And if council wishes to support this land donation or discount ask, staff have proposed how to proceed based on our most recent experience in providing and offering Habitat for Humanity land, and that was with a 50% discount for an identified duplex lot, with the land and real estate accounts, financial accounts being kept whole, consistent with their mandate through an internal transfer from capital reserves for the difference. So I'd like to welcome Manager Buckner, Real Estate Specialist Cochran is in the audience as well. And I believe I also saw members from Habitat for Humanity join us who are in the gallery.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Are the Habitat for Humanity people the blue shirts? Great color, you all look amazing. Go ahead, please.
Through the chair, in front of us today, there is the recommendation for a reduced sales price for a residential duplex lot in Southlands. Habitat for Humanity has provided a letter indicating their affordable home ownership program, where they provide a no down payment and interest-free mortgage, and they also qualify the families that are part of the program. So as part of that today in front of council is the opportunity to provide options to either provide a discount to that lot or for other considerations for us to take back.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Hyder?
Thank you, and through the chair, I can't say enough great things about Habitat for Humanity. I appreciate, pardon me, I've got some allergies that I think I'm not dying yet, but anyway, a little foggy. Randy, I appreciate you bringing forth this, and it's a great opportunity for us to work with organizations like this, so I'm in full support.
Councillor Van Dyke?
Yes, thank you through the chair. Just a couple of things. So I had mentioned this previously, but I just wanted to bring this forward to administration. Question around how this came through ELE versus social housing projects we've seen come previously through public services, and how that's determined, and if you foresee that. I'm sure there's not a specific policy or procedure, but is there consideration to developing that so that we see consistency in how non-market or social housing projects would come through administration to committee? And then I'm going to ask a question because I don't see Councillor Hirsch's name on the board, but the question around the frequency of asks. So in the briefing note, we had some information on previous Habitat for Humanity projects, how those had come forward and costs were covered, and then the frequency which we can expect to see requests like this come forward in the future. Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Van Dyke, this was a collaborative effort to bring forward this recommendation. So we've worked very closely with community development. Given that we are the department that is holding the land and has the land available, we usually are the best point of contact to be able to provide potentially options or background information and work with them to find the location that might work well for the project that they're proposing. So we are seeing a few of these asks come through through the Land and Real Estate Department. But with that being said, the community benefit and the relationship piece, we're working with a variety of different departments to provide these recommendations. So in this case, the understanding the community housing piece of it was from the community development. So we did have internal meetings and discussions about understanding the relationship side of things and then the need in the community overall. And to your second question on the frequency of the ask, I understand with this ask, there's a few key items that need to come together for the Habitat for Humanity group. One is being able to secure the land. The other is having a family that qualifies for their program. And then the other is being able to fundraise the funds to actually complete the build or for the other considerations for their project. The frequency of the ask, I think the group would love to have the opportunity to do many projects within the community, even up to one every 5 years. It really depends on their ability to fundraise and to get those funds. So right now, in front of them is just the singular ask, but in the future, depending on community need, having a family that qualifies and also their fundraising efforts, there could be future asks that do come.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sharp's questions for Manager Buckner?
Yes, thank you, and through the chair. So first of all, yeah, hands down, this has got my vote. I think this is amazing. I think this is probably one of the best organizations that I've ever seen out there. And in a time of a housing crisis, to me, this is amazing, and it's exactly what we should be doing. So I'm excited to support this. My question is more an accounting question, and it's just because I don't understand it. So why the need to transfer the money from reserve? I guess I don't understand why we just don't make that as that's a loss. I guess if we're dipping into reserves, that to me is a different matter than donating the land or giving it to them at a discount price. to whoever wants to answer that.
Managing Director Pankos looks like she's dying to answer that question.
Thank you, through the chair. This is more of an internal performance management and accounting exercise to really keep individual profit centers, for instance, in the case of land, separate from the socioeconomic or public policy side of things. So it's when people hold us accountable on the land side to say, are you making money or are you not making money? And if we're regularly asked to donate at a subsidized less than fair market value, despite whatever costs were incurred in order to prepare the parcel of land, then it's difficult to truly measure the success or not of being in that business line. So this is just an internal shift to keep us not at a profit, but to keep us whole at the fair market value that would be incurred otherwise, because we have an option to sell it to other parties at the then fair market value.
So my follow-up question to that is, and I'm sorry, I really kind of need to understand this, because to me, we're just taking from Paul to give to Peter, so really the taxpayer is picking up the tab regardless. Wouldn't it be easier to take this out of the KPIs of performance and say, instead of, $1 million worth of land, it's $1 million minus the 59,000? So I guess to me, it should never be counted, because either way, we're taking it out of reserves. So yeah, I see you know what I'm saying because you're nodding, but I don't know if I can say this properly. I think you know what I'm saying though.
Yes, through the chair, there's a number of ways that you could address it, either by providing the subsidized value back to keep the entity, to keep land and real estate whole, or to remove the asset complete with its costs of development. But for consistency, this is how we've done it historically. We could always revisit that going forward. And I will also note that our land team is relatively new, being reestablished and finally fully complete earlier this year, the team itself. As part of that, we are revisiting our overall strategy. We're currently doing a significant review, trying to pull data and evidence together to help inform what that strategy looks like. And that is one of our questions is that we will bring back to council, is the mandate for land and real estate. So if this is more of the ask going forward, to the point that council is interested in simply supporting where there's gaps in the community and we're helping facilitate the process, and it's no longer being asked to be a profit center, then that's something that we'll leave to council to consider in terms of mandate, and we'll look to bring a recommendation on that forward in coming months.
Thank you, Managing Director Pankos. I do appreciate the clarity on that, because to me, I really see this as such a goodwill. But I don't want them to have to say, can we take reserves just to meet our goal? Because they're knocking it out of the park, because every time I walk by Samus 7, they've sold something. So good job, they're really coming together. So to me, it shouldn't be held against them, and I want to be able to go to the community when they ask and say, yeah, we've got some donation space here, right? So anyways, that was just my thoughts. I hate to go on that B, but that was been bugging me all weekend, why we have to transfer it.
Thank you, Councillor Sharps. Councillor Hirsch, I do know we don't have a motion on the table yet, but we're still getting our questions answered.
Okay, so I won't do the motion yet.
Oh, no, you can do the motion if you want. You're the last speaker. Mayor Clark doesn't have her hand up.
So is your preference me make comments first, or would you like the motion, Madam Chair?
I would prefer you had questions for the speaker first, but then if you don't, feel free to do motions and comments.
Okay, so why don't I make that motion, because I was going to respond to Councillor Sharps as well. So I'll make that motion and then make some comments. So I move that council authorize execution of a real estate purchase contract for the sale of property described as 5244/520 or 5240 Southlands Drive Southeast, which is Lot 23, Plan 8, Block 8, Plan 1012845. With the Habitat of Humanity Southern Alberta Medicine Hat chapter at 50% reduction from the sale price of $119,800 to $59,900 on terms and conditions satisfactory to the city manager and city solicitor, and B, approves the transfer of the remaining 50%, which is $59,900 from the capital reserve to the land and real estate department to compensate for the market value of the property.
I'll second that.
So if you don't mind, I'm making comments. So thanks, appreciate everyone's work on this. To Councillor Sharp's understanding in terms of where the money's going, I'm actually okay with the idea that each department is a business unit accountable to a certain level. Everyone has some KPIs. So I don't mind. In my mind, I always consider us as council doing a grant. So we're doing a grant, and then by virtue of making our land and properties whole, we grant them $59,900. They receive that money, so that kind of keeps everything whole. That's how my process in my mind works. So I'm actually okay how it's set up. So thanks to staff for reviewing the frequency of how often Habitat for Humanity does the projects. Why it's important to me in my mind is if we're doing one grant of that amount every 5 years. So for simple math, I took $60,000 divided by 5 years is say 12,000 and change that we're contributing to a worthy cause. The challenge is, in my mind, and this is just how I have to think as a counselor of the public purse, if it becomes more frequent, then I'd have to pause to say, okay, let's review our procedure on this, or our standard or precedent, only because there is a plethora of other deserving groups in our community that are always looking for financial support. So it has nothing to do, and it's not even a slight to Habitat for Humanity. They do a brilliant job. The only problem that we run into is if it's more frequent, then that dollar figure kind of ratchets up a little bit, and then it might give me some pause to kind of consider, is it now 50% going forward, or maybe it's 30 because of the frequency? So again, as a person that's responsible for public purse, I think you would probably not find any individuals that would be against in terms of what that group is trying to accomplish, and congratulations to all of you. That was just the rationale that I had at committee. So I want to thank staff for going back and just to confirm kind of what that looked like. But I'm absolutely comfortable making the recommendation and certainly supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hirsch, sorry. Any other comments before I call the vote? All right, we shall vote then.
I vote yes.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. And that passes unanimously. Thank you for sticking with us for 2 hours to figure that out. And thank you, Manager Buckner. That was a very helpful presentation. All right, I think we're turned around to 11.6, which was something that we pulled from the consent agenda. Councillor Sharps. Yes, please.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to let you know, we do have Manager or Director Nowakowski on the line too, to answer any questions that come out of this item.
Great. Yes, I can see him right here. So, well, I can't see him. I see his initials. Oh, here he comes. Now I'm going to be able to see him. He's smiling at me, so it's all good. There he is. All right, perfect. All right.
Okay.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you very much. I will make this quick. So as I read the briefing note this weekend, it slightly differs from the committee meeting notes. So in the committee meeting, it went to public services for Director Will to work with. And then in this, it says we're just going to go back to the traffic plan. So so there is some incongruence there. So it actually went back to Director Will, and so it was two things that were going to happen at committee. It was going back to Director Will to work with the resident, one of the residents that had brought this forward, and then it was going to come back to committee because all of council has heard about this and had emails. So that it's not quite, the two aren't aligned. So I just wanted to get the documentation and the paperwork accurate.
City Manager, you want Managing Director Bohan to address that?
Yeah, I'm actually, apologies, I'm going to actually defer to Acting Managing Director Will.
You know, Wimbledon's on right now, and it feels just like that. Go ahead, Acting Managing Director Will.
That was good.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you're correct that the information that went forward through Development and Infrastructure Committee did follow what our plan is for the active transportation strategy. And I'm speaking for Director Nowakowski here. That information, when we look at where there's gaps in the current roadway or pathway network, that this is a difficult area for us to create a pathway, and I think we discussed all this in Development and Infrastructure Committee. We are looking at resolving a couple of challenges with that area. So with Huron Crossing, we see a lot of residents and visitors to our community going to access that space for entry into the creek. And as that development starts to, or finalizes development, we're seeing a parking challenge, a challenge where residents are going to find a harder time getting into the creek at that location. But it is a desired location for residents to go. And it's like paving a pathway. You can pave the pathway where you want people to walk, but where you see them walking across the grass, that's maybe where you should have paved the pathway. So we have to take that into consideration, that it is a popular spot for residents and visitors. We also see the connectivity for the trail network out there. We know that there's other areas around the community, as we heard in D&I committee, that would benefit from dollars to connect those trails. And we see that in other areas of the community that have a larger population mass. However, we do have a challenge with residents having to ride their bikes or walk on the roadway out there. So our department, we did make contact, or I made contact with the resident that raised this concern. And we are looking at a plan right now to bring back through D&I committee that would potentially resolve a parking challenge for Huron Crossing and the trail connectivity issue. It's not a slam dunk because there are some challenges with the road right-of-way. Available land is not all our land, but we know that those two issues combined makes it a bigger issue for us to resolve for sure. And certainly the safety of kids out there and utilizing the roadway as a path. We understand that's a concern. So it is something we intend to bring back.
Thank you. If I may follow up. Thank you. I appreciate that, Acting Manager, Director Will. I was going to say I use that road because I'm backed up on Southridge Drive, right? So I take that road and it's getting busier and busier. Like it is starting to be a very common road, and it's narrow. It's even hard for vehicles because I think it goes down to 40 in there, and it's like if you're just ripping around there, and it is incredibly busy. Like I used to take that road because I was like the only one on it. Now it's like, which one do I take? So I'm glad that you're on it because it's not just the children, even though that's huge. It is starting to be a very busy roadway. So I appreciate you looking into that. And I just wanted to clear, the reason I pulled it out is the two don't align. So I wanted to make sure that that was noted. Thank you. Well, it should change because the briefing note isn't correct. Thanks.
Sorry, can I, before we just go on to Councillor Hirsch, the briefing note or the minutes of the meeting? The summary of the meeting you'd like?
The summary of the meeting is correct.
Okay.
The briefing note said that it was just going back to the traffic plan and nothing else was being done, and it's not accurate. He was working on it.
Go ahead, City Manager Mitchell.
I believe the confusion is because the briefing note came to D&I as it was, and the change happened at the meeting, which was summarized in the minutes. Does that make sense?
I was just going to say the briefing note is what was considered at the meeting.
Yes.
And then through discussion, the minutes came out. Is that?
Yes, yes.
I see
And
Director Nowakowski is smiling and nodding at me.
Yes.
Grimacing maybe and nodding, I'm not sure.
No.
I wasn't there.
I was at the meeting, and that's my recollection. The briefing note came forward. That's what was considered, and the meeting notes capture what the decision was moving forward.
Councillor Hirsch, did you want to chime in on this?
I did, thanks. So I appreciate Councillor Sharp's pulling this out. It did allow me the opportunity to ask this question, but first off, just a comment. So I met the resident that brought the concern forward, but the reality is this is kind of becoming a repeating challenge, certainly for the city, in the fact that a development's considered, a area structure plan submitted, everything's fine until the inability of the developer to fulfill their obligations. So all of a sudden now we've got a development that was basically left and not fulfilled And then I guess I don't necessarily blame the homeowners to say, hey, I'm a citizen of Medicine Hat, I pay taxes, where's my equivalency that other citizens get? But the funny thing is, I definitely see the side of the city saying, oh, just hang on a second, you know, we weren't one to have the vision, but we're kind of the catcher's mitt. We kind of catch everything. And so nobody wins on this. But my question that I asked the resident, to which I'm asking now, is a lot of times when we do the developments, there's bonds placed or there's performance bonds, et cetera. So in this case, was there one, and was it utilized to, I don't know, finish off? Because my understanding was it was an area structure plan that contemplated a park, not necessarily a path, but for consideration, this is the individual that I spoke to, and I think he's got consensus from other homeowners that they would much rather have the path than the park. So for me, it's 6 of one, half a dozen, but I'd like to understand about the bond piece. And if there was one, if we can disclose how much it was or whatever, and did we utilize that bond? Thank you.
Managing Director Bohan.
Yeah, thank you to Councillor Hirsch, the chair. In this particular case, the developer met the obligation of completing the multi-use pathway within the development itself. The question really comes into play as to the multi-use connectivity back to the to Southridge Drive, essentially, right? When the Cimarron ASP was put together, it did not have a requirement for connectivity or the developer to pay for that that multi-use pathway at that time. And so the extension of the pathway, as it's noted in the briefing note, was actually paid for with external funding and partially paid for by the Cypress County. So that's where that extension came in. So as of currently, there was no requirement for, because there was no developer on the Cimarron project. That's really where the gap is. So what we have today is, there was no obligation on behalf of the developer at Heron Crossing to make that connectivity. That was the Cimarron. That would be the person or the developer who builds out Cimarron.
So if I can supplement?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. So I guess just the question is, so my understanding is that the original developer of the upper level, sorry, what was that?
No.
The upper, I apologize, but I think Canyon Creek. Thank you very much. So the original developer of Canyon Creek basically, I don't know, it was just either defaulted or basically went into bankruptcy. So I guess that's my question, and then I believe the developer of Heron Crossing and inevitably took that over to kind of finish the job. So I don't know if I have any challenge with Heron Crossing developer when he's kind of doing a favor for the whole community by developing it out. The challenge I have is, was there a bond for that original developer? And you had mentioned he fulfilled the obligations, which I'm presuming means that the bond could have been released. That's my question. Was there a bond? Is there a bond remaining, or is that kind of all spent, or what's the status?
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor Hirsch. I'll answer your question this way. I don't know. I don't know whether a bond was put there, but I can say that the bond would not have had anything related to the connectivity from the base of the hill to the Desert Balloon turnoff. So, because that would have been on the, I guess, the future developer of Cimarron would be, we would build that into the an updated ASP.
So with your indulgence, so through the chair again, so correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't seen the ASP, because I'd have to dig for it. But in that Canyon Creek ASP, was there consideration, because I guess that's what I'm hearing from the resident, is in the ASP there was discussion or contemplation of a park, and his feeling is, okay, let them off the park, but I'd rather not, in lieu of not having a park, I'd like to have a trail. So that's where I'd like to understand on the original developer, because you mentioned that they executed the ask, but I guess the question is, on the original ASP, was there consideration of a park? And was that, because obviously it's not been developed. And that's where I'm coming on the whole bond thing.
Through Councillor Robbins to Councillor Hirsch. I'm going to defer to Stan. He may have some more information on that. I see your point now. Thanks for the clarification. So.
Through the chair, we would have to go back and check on the service agreement between the Canyon Creek developer and the city for that development to see if there was there probably was some security taken for that development. I don't know if there was a park included in that design. We'd have to go back and check.
Thank you very much, Director Nowakowski. Mayor Clark, you're second in line. We have Councillor McGrogan, and we'll come to you next.
Thank you. Through the chair, just briefly, I'm just a comment. I think that we're focused on the residents, the few that are in that area, but I think even if there was no residents in that area, we'd be having a similar discussion about the safety of that bridge, multi-use, people on bicycles, pedestrians, cars, whatever the case might be, the lift stations at the bottom. There's the, I guess, the popular river loading and unloading area. So I think regardless of that residential area, we'd be sooner or later either having this discussion or we'd be talking about the safety that I think is, I deem it as almost treacherous at this point. So just a comment, I think we'd be looking at this either way.
All right, Mayor Clark.
Thank you. And through the chair, I don't need an answer to this right now. I think when the briefing note comes back, it would be an appropriate time. I would very much like to understand, or maybe council approve, how we determine what our most urgent projects are with respect to active transportation or pathways or parks. I assume that the transportation what is it called? The transportation plan that we're doing and the active transportation plan that we're doing will probably have some of that rubric within it, but certainly it would be helpful for me to understand, because the number of people that benefit surely is a consideration, but as Councillor McGrogan pointed out, maybe there's people that, aren't in that neighborhood who are also benefiting. And then, of course, the risk benefit analysis is very important. So I would just like to have a better understanding of, how we make decisions about which pathways are most necessary, what we should be spending money on this year as opposed to 4 years from now. And I think our transportation plan will do that, but perhaps Managing Director Bohan can comment. Or Director Nowakowski, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clark. I see Director Nowakowski's hand is up, so if that's all right with City Manager Mitchell and Managing Director Bone, we'll get him to chime in. Go ahead, Director Nowakowski.
Thank you. Through the chair, a couple of comments. First to Mayor Clark. Mayor Clark's comment, yes, the active transportation strategy. One of the deliverables is a listing of gaps in our pedestrian and active transportation network. It will identify where these gaps are and also present a plan, a 10-year plan for filling those gaps, including potential costs for that. Second point goes to Councillor McGrogan and the comment about the road going down the hill. We did a speed review about 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember exactly when. that determined the applicable speed for that stretch of south boundary that turns into Range Road. I believe it's 62. And that's where the change in speed happens. It goes from 70 kilometers on south boundary down to 50. 50 along that road down the hill, and then down to 40 across the bridge. So there has been a safety review completed a few years ago, and the speed was appropriately set.
Thank you very much for that. I have Councillor Dumanowski next.
Yeah, through the chair, good conversation, and it's to the point that was said earlier. Making decisions on the fly doesn't typically yield the kind of results we want. We're not making decisions, but we certainly are, and I'm here to elevate the conversation that's being had. I've been here all these years, so when I think about kind of the development stages and timelines, it's funny how quickly certain aspects evaporate quickly before our eyes because they're never the priority of the day. And so I'm not going to sit here and point fingers, but I do note from the author of the petition that in the initial development there was to be a park, but the city permitted the then developer to move to phase 4, which of course in their conclusion avoided the need to create that secondary access. So in the end, we have to weigh the public purse, we have to weigh priorities around development of playground structures and pathway systems, the active transportation plan as is being discussed today. And I guess my submission would be that identifying, as has been indicated, filling the gaps, this is one of them. I think what I'm left with from the author is that for 20 years, this development's been there. For 8 years, these kinds of conversations have been had, but have not yet yielded any kind of formal plan around doing something. So I certainly, I guess, will add my support for the conversation, and I'm glad that it's here. I want the residents in that area and the broader area to feel that they are being heard. There is obviously, I guess, a consideration of where do we spend our dollars and where do we put our priorities into the future. And I know many years ago I sat around here when we had, I'm going to say it, dilapidated playground structures around the city. They were the old stick-built sliver type playground structures. We had to fight hard and I came here to fight hard at the time to say the city, we need to look at our, evaluate and prioritize the replacement of those kinds of structures because they are part of the recreation benefit of all citizenry and the taxpayer one and the like. So in this case, I guess where I'm going is I'd like to see, certainly the ultimate plan is to have that pathway connectivity, but a playground structure of some kind certainly would be a great segue to that end. All, of course, has a price tag afforded and tied to it, but I think I will add and echo my support for this being elevated to a point where 8 years from now, we certainly should not be talking. I won't even say 8, that's mean. A handful of years from now, we should be talking about how we took it from this point to the conclusion that is being desired. So I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dumanowski. I just need some clarification from City Manager Mitchell. So what I'm hearing is that Director Nowakowski is working on the active transportation strategy, which will help us know where the gaps in our trail systems are. And there'll be probably budget requests associated with filling those gaps, which may well be, this might be one of them for all I know. So that work continues and that work falls under DNI? Okay. And then I've heard that acting managing director Will is working on some, a Band-Aid maybe, or some sort of solution that might be a win-win for other users of the creek and some parking issues in the area. Is that going to come back up through public services then? Or is that something you're doing to assist DNI? Just curious if I'm going to see it again.
Yes. Through the chair, we did discover through this process that there is a bit of a disconnect between roads and paths, and we need some clarity around that, and that's something administratively we're working on. Luckily, I happened to be in a meeting where I was talking to Acting Managing Director Will about another matter, and this came up. And he said, oh, that's actually under my envelope. So he came to the meeting, and that's how we came up to the solution that we did. So we certainly need some clarity administratively, not only on the active transportation plan, but also if pathways then fall under public services, how do we connect that if they're doing the active transportation plan through DNI? We need clarity, and then we'll let council know who's doing what and who's responsible for what, because we don't want this to occur.
Yes, we don't want to dig tunnels or whatever their word with the Eurotunnel is not actually connect. Okay, so I might hear about it again in public services. Somebody else might hear about it again in DNI, and we probably might all hear about it again at some point. Oh, Mayor Clark, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Through the chair, I completely agree with City Manager Mitchell's point about, if it's transportation, which active transportation is becoming more transportation, more like roads, more like streets, for actually commuting from one place to another, maybe it needs to be in a different area. So that's a great question to ask and get clarity on. What I wanted just to add, Chair Robbins, was not just identifying the gaps through the active transportation plan, but some form of rubric. I know that Director Nowakowski said that there would be a staging plan, like identify the gaps, and then there would be a staging plan, what would happen first, what would happen second, et cetera. I wouldn't mind, as I suggested, what criteria are being considered in identifying what's first and what's 100th, because I think that's an important consideration for the community in terms of we want to, maximize the benefit of our dollars to our community. As I'm sure we've all heard, I just had a friend visit from Texas who was so in awe of our trail system. Like it is really one of the gems of our community. So want to make sure we maximize the benefit for of our dollars for our community, and how do we do that?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. All very excellent points. All right, I don't see any other speakers, and there was no motion coming out of this. I don't think. We'll leave it as it was just informational. So thank you very much. Are there any council member reports? All right, seeing none, unless somebody objects, I'm going to suggest we adjourn the meeting at 9:23. No objection noted. Adjourned.